Okay, Rabbi Say, welcome back. What is Maris Ayin? What is chashad? Does it apply? Is it just from the Gemara? What's going on? What's the story? Please tell me. Come listen. Be ears. Before I start, this shiur should be the Refuah Shlema Avram Chaim ben Yehudis, a friend of mine, a member of the Kehillah, who is in serious condition, very serious medical condition, and this shiur should be schus for his refuah shalema. Okay, so what is Maris Ayin? What is chashad? Are they the same thing? Or are they something different? So Shlomo Zalman says they're the same thing. The terms are just interchangeable. Sometimes you call it chashad, sometimes you call it Maris Ayin. Rav Moshe Feinstein, however, says there is a difference between the two terms. Maris Ayin is you shouldn't do something that will cause others to think that that action is allowed, and they will come to learn from it and perform it themselves and do it themselves. That is Maris Ayin. Maris Ayin is when you're going to cause somebody else to do something asur. They're going to learn from your ways. Don't do that. That is Maris Ayin. However, according to Rav Moshe, what's chashad? Chashad is when you're going to do something that they know is wrong. They know McDonald's isn't kosher, and they're going to come to think that you're eating at McDonald's. So Maris Ayin is, they might think, oh, you're really allowed to do that? Chashad is obviously that is asur, but they will come to learn from it. So I understand if we're discussing what Rav Moshe calls Maris Ayin, why that should be a problem. I can't do something where people are going to come to learn from me and end up being over Yisurim. My action will cause people to be over Yisurim. I see clearly why that's a problem. But on the tzad of something that is the issue would be that they're going to look at me like I'm doing Averis. Well, you know what? What's the problem if they think I'm doing Averis? Who cares what they think? Why is it my business what they think? Who cares what they think? Let them think that I'm a bad guy. Maybe it'll be good for my anava, huh? So why should that be an isser on performing an action that will cause them to think bad about me? So there's two different mahalchim. One is, it's a chil Hashem! They're going to see a good from a yid doing Averis and think that at least the good from a yid's doing Averis. This is a chil Hashem! Option number two is, I'm going to be causing them to be dan lekav choiva. They're supposed to be dan lekav schos, and I'm going to be causing them to be dan lekav choiva. Okay. Why can we avoid all these isurim of Maris Ayin chashad with a very simple replacement din? The din will be, Amar Chazal should say, mind your own business. And if everybody just goes and minds their own business, we won't have to deal with all this Maris Ayin. A great idea. So apparently it's not such a great idea. Why? I was thinking perhaps because Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh. We're all one big happy family. Where for us, our friends and our neighbors, we're supposed to be, to a certain degree and limit, within each other's business. We're supposed to be connected. We're supposed to be involved. And you know what? We're even sometimes supposed to give our friends and neighbors teichacha and tell them, you're not allowed to do that, right? So therefore, it's not an option to say everyone should mind their own business. And furthermore, let's just face it, humans are humans, and even if you tell everybody, mind your own business, they won't. It's not just your kids. It's you too. Okay. Now, fine. Maris Ayin chashad, is this d'Rabbanan or is this d'Oraisa? So when it comes to Maris Ayin, it seems to be pretty accepted and understood across the board that is what we were calling Maris Ayin, at least. That chiluk of it is d'Rabbanan. It's a d'Rabbanan, not to cause people to either learn from your ways and do Yisurim. We'll keep it like that. What about chashad? The people are going to think that you do Averis, and you need to prevent people from thinking you're doing Averis. Is that d'Rabbanan d'Oraisa? So the Ma'isa, we have a pasuk. It's in Bamidbar, Lamed Beis Chaf Beis. It says, "V'yisem nekiyim me Hashem u'mi Yisrael." You got to be clean, not just clean from Hashem, but you got to be clean from Hashem, good record with Hashem, and Yisrael. You have to be clean in the eyes of Yidden, of the Jews. So you know what? We see a deraisa source. However, not everybody agrees that this is a din deraisa. Some say that source is actually just a asmachta. Asmachta means it's a, so to speak, hint to the din midiraisa, but it's really a derabanan dika din. Either way, whether you hold that it's a din deraisa, din derabanan, it doesn't really make a big difference. L'maisa, the Minei mitzvahs do not count it as one of the 613, as an individual mitzvah. And l'maisa, or individual avera, you could say. However, l'maisa, it really is, everybody agrees to this concept. The pasuk is alluding to the fact that you should be good in the eyes of people. So whether it's the race that the Isser Chashad fits into that or not, doesn't really make the biggest difference in the world. L'maisa, avoid it. Okay, now, let's keep on going. Where do we see, let's go through some Mekayres and the Mishnayos and the Gemara about Maris Ayin and Chashad. It will give us a feeling of the din, and then we'll get into some more additional practical points. So where do we see it? So let's start off with some examples. Animal blood, we know, is usher to eat midiraisa. Fish blood, on the other hand, there is no isser deraisa on eating fish blood. However, there's a Gemara in Krisus Chaf Alpha and Beis, also in Brachas Vav and Beis, that says that since fish blood looks like animal blood, you cannot eat fish blood. Sorry guys, tough luck. No fish blood for you. You cannot have fish blood because it looks like animal blood, which is deraisa, and it'll be Maris Ayin to drink fish blood. However, don't worry guys, I know you're getting all worried about these chumras that I'm saying. Big heter, we got a big heter out there. The Gemara brings the big heter that if you take some fish scales and you stick it into the fish blood, b'te'avon, you're allowed to have it. Enjoy, you guys enjoy the fish blood. Just remember to put the fish bones in first. Okay. Now, and by the way, it's brought down Halacha Shulchan Aruch. Fine. And by the way, not only are you not allowed to have fish blood, and where's the Shulchan Aruch? By the way, Shulchan Aruch is in Yerdea Samach Vav Tes. The Gemara in Krisus also says not only can you not have fish blood, but you can't have human blood. Okay, I guess that really stinks for the vampires out there. But for the non-vampire crowd, who cares that I can't have human blood? What's the reason? Same reason. It's Maris Ayin up to animal blood. Human blood, animal blood looks kind of the same. And if the onlooker is going to think I'm having animal blood. So therefore you can't have human blood. Okay, but I'm not a vampire, so who cares? Actually, it makes a big difference. Like this example, the Gemara qualifies. Let's say somebody has bloody teeth, and they bite into a piece of bread, and there's a little blood on the bread. The halacha is you cannot take the next bite. You have to wipe the blood off that bread before eating the bread. And when we discussed the halachas of blood, we discussed that even using the floss of the toothbrush, and when you get blood on it, you actually have to wash it off before your next floss or your next brushing of your teeth, because once that blood goes out of your mouth, you can't have it. However, when it comes to human blood, there's a chiddush that we see that if it's not stays in your mouth, not that it left your mouth and goes back in, but if it stays in your mouth, then there's no isser. Tzarech in why. Okay. Now, next example that we see. There's a Mishnah in Shabbos Kuf Mem Vav that says like this. We all know there's an isser of laundering on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do the laundry on Shabbos, even if your laundry is not electric. Even if you still do laundry in your bathtub, you cannot do it on Shabbos. So if your clothing gets wet on Shabbos, you fell into the pool, you fell into the river, your clothes fell in the bucket, whatever it was, and your clothes got wet into the river, then don't hang them in a place that is normally used for drying clothing, because it's Maris Ayin. it looks like you did the laundry, and now you hung it out on the clothing rack. That's Maris Ayin. People are going to think you did the laundry on Shabbos. You can't do it. Or as Rashi says, you get caught in the rain, and now you go. You have the wet clothes. Cannot hang it out on the clothing rack. Maris Ayin. It looks like you did the laundry on Shabbos. Another example is we see Shabbos Chav Gimel Manal. If one has two entrances to his courtyard, we know Chanukah is coming up. So somebody has two entrances to his courtyard. Eretz Yisrael, we light outside. You light by the entrance to the courtyard. So you have to put a menorah on both entrances of the courtyard. Why? Because if somebody walks by one entrance and doesn't see a menorah, he's going to think, this guy doesn't light. He doesn't light menorah. I walked by the entrance of his chutzner. I didn't see a menorah. So if you have two entrances to your chutzner, two menorahs, mifnei chashad. You don't want people to think that you don't light menorah. There's a Mishnah in Shkalim. It says that when the kohen goes into the lishka to go take the cash out of the lishka, so he goes in with he's wearing no shoes, no sandals. He has no pockets in his clothes, no hems in his pants where he can maybe hide some money. He doesn't even go in with tefillin, nothing. He goes, and the Rambam even says that when he's going, he needs to be talking the whole time to the people on the outside. So, there's no way that he hid money in his mouth. So, you got to stay clear of chashad. Don't put yourself into a position where people are going to be choishish you. Okay. Where else do we have to worry about Maris Ayin? So, besides, there's some more examples. I didn't say every example in the Mishnah and the Gemara. I just wanted to give enough to give us a feeling. But where else is that it? Is it only what's in the Mishnah and the Gemara, or are there other examples? Where does it apply? So I saw the Mishnah Halachis from Nasha Klein. He says, it's unclear how to apply Maris Ayin. The Gedarim aren't clear. So I just want to say I agree. It seems to be that this is not such a clearly defined, easy sugya. And once again, our job is in this room, is to take the confusing and make it clear. So let's do that. Let's clarify the confusing. Okay. So the Rashba says that you cannot eat meat with cholav isha. A woman extracts milk. You can't go flip that into your chalent. You can't eat the milk with the cholav isha because it looks like basar b'cholav. And if it looks like basar b'cholav, that's a problem. I guess it tastes like basar b'cholav, looks like basar b'cholav, and that will be a problem. Okay. The Pri Chadash says that we do not make up our own Maris Ayins. And Tzarech Im was pshat in the Rashba because we don't make up our own Maris Ayins. And the crazy place here of Yonasan Eibeshtetz goes like the Pri Chadash. The Ramah in Shulchan Aruch Yerdea Pei Zayin Gimel, right by the beginning of Basar B'chalav, says that if one puts meat in almond milk, they need to put almonds on the side as a simon. Because you can't put meat in almond milk and just like that. Why? Because people are going to chop it's almond milk. They're going to think it's regular milk. It's going to think you're serving basar b'chalav over here. So if you're going to serve meat in almond milk, you need to put almonds on the side. Everybody's going to say, almonds, it's almond milk. Okay, I chop. So that's what you have to do. And the Yad Yehuda, he says, really, the Pri Chadash is right. That we don't make up our own gezeros. However, what can I do? The Ramah seems to paskin that you could make up your own gezeros. So we're going to go with the Ramah that you could make up your own gezeros, but don't be too machmer in the sugya, because the real din should be like the Pri Chadash. The Krasi says that the Ramah, he messed up over here. The Ramah misapplied the Rashba. That's what the Krasi place says. Why? The Gemara was geyser. Fish blood is like animal blood. Human blood is like animal blood. And the Rashba made a similar gezerah. The Rashba said, woman milk is like animal milk. But the Ramah, he's extended the din way too far. This is almond juice. It's not really milk. The liquid that comes out of almonds, is that milk? That's not really milk. That's almond juice. Yes, some people, marketers, might call it milk, almond milk. It's almond juice, and we're geyzering almond juice based on animal milk. When it came to milk of the Rashba, the human milk, so it's milk, same product, but different source. Human milk and animal milk are the same product. They're both milk, different sources. Over here, almond milk is a different product to animal milk. It's not merely a different source, but it's a different product, and therefore the crazy place says the Rashba overstepped his boundaries with this gezerah, and he took it too far. Okay, now I want to ask you something interesting. There's a new type of milk that just came out in Eretz Yisrael. I actually tried to pick one up right before the shiur so I could taste it, but I was not successful. I got to the place when it was just closed, so I wasn't able to buy at the supermarket. So sorry, but this new milk, I think if I understood the science, they take an enzyme which mimics the enzyme of a milk enzyme, and they use a fermenting process to multiply it, and it creates this liquid which apparently looks like milk, smells like milk, feels like milk, and tastes like milk. And it just doesn't have the lactose and etc. And no part of it was ever in a cow. So it's pretty much milk, but not from a cow. They're calling it new milk. Some company called Remilk made it. Now, is that milkless or is that parv? That's parv. What would the crazy say? So I think the crazy would say that the Rashba would apply to this milk. Even though the crazy said the Rashba doesn't apply to almond milk, I think the crazy would have to be masking that it would apply to this, because this is milk. Is it from a cow? No. Is it milk? Yeah, it's the same exact thing. And therefore, it seemingly is milk, and I think the crazy would have to say this new milk, it would fit into the Rashba. Is there Maris Ayin if it looks like I'm doing it Issa D'Rabbanan? Right, until now we're talking about, let's say, Basar V'Cholov. That's Asur M'Daraisa. Assuming it was cooked together, but once again, we aren't focused on that point, but I think that's what we're talking about. Now, is there Maris Ayin if it looks like a D'Rabbanan? So let's check out that Ramah, that same Ramah that we're discussing. The Ramah says they were nogu. The minig was they would mix chicken with this almond milk, and they didn't use the siman of almonds. So you see, the Ramah seemingly clearly holds there is no Maris Ayin by Issa D'Rabbanan. No Maris Ayin by Issa D'Rabbanan. And that seems to be how the Ramah paskins. And the Levush and the crazy go with this. No Maris Ayin by Issa D'Rabbanan. The Yam Shel Shlomo, he argues on this. He says, guys, Kol Shekain, Kal V'chomer, there needs to be Maris Ayin on this case of chicken and milk. People are going to get this one wrong. This is really where people are going to get wrong when it comes to chicken and almond milk. That's where people are going to get it wrong. Why? Because there's actually a shita that says it's allowed. Rabbi Yosef Glili says it's allowed almond milk and chicken. So over here, there's all the more reason to get it wrong, and therefore over here we surely need to be geyser. Okay, next. The Taz, what does the Taz say? So the Taz says that really the Ramah is correct, that you don't need a siman by, let's say, chicken and almond milk. But you know what? Do a siman anyways. It's the right thing to do. If you have a siman, please do it. The Shach, by the way, he argues on the Ramah. And he says, no, there is Maris Ayin on the Rabbanon. And the Chachmas Adam, he goes like the Shach. The Aruch HaShulchan says that it's Nochoin to be Machmir like the Shach. So once again, it seems to be there's a big machlokes over here, but there definitely are those being Machmir for Maris Ayin on a D'Rabbanan. Okay. The Yad Avram and the Piskei Juva, they explain the Ramah. The Ramah was saying that there's no issue of Maris Ayin and the Rabbanan only in private. In public, the Ramah would have a problem, but in private, the Ramah is okay, and that's how the Yad Avram and Piskei Juva explain. The Maisa, the Tosfos on Shabbos, Samach Daled Amid Beis, says whatever's Aser because of Maris Ayin is Aser even B'chedrei Chedarim. We have this klal, and this seems to be a very accepted klal. It's not just some Tosfos, that whatever Chazal Aser out Maris Ayin, we Aser even Chedrei Chedarim, even in private. So why over here are we saying that the Ramah allowed Maris Ayin in private but not in public? So the answer that Maris Ayin on the Rabbanon we allow that klal doesn't apply. Maris Ayin on the Rabbanon is allowed in private, but when it comes to Maris Ayin on the Reisa, that's where we say the klal of whatever's Maris Ayin in public is Maris Ayin b'D'Rabbanan in private as well. So let me just get that clear one more time. At the end of the day, we're going to say Maris Ayin on something that's Asr Mid'Oraisa is going to be Asr both in public and in private. Maris Ayin on something that would only be Asr Mid'Rabbanan is going to be Asr in public but Mutter in private. Now it happens to be Moshe's Machmer over here, even on private, that you can't do Maris Ayin on the Rabbanan. But L'maisa, the Mishnah Berurah seems to, it's really the Rosh Tosfos Magen Avraham and Mishnah Berurah seem to say that it's Mutter in private. So Mishnah Berurah Mutter in private, Maris Ayin and the Rabbanan, Moshe is going to be Aser, because once again, that seems to be the Aruch HaShulchan and Chachmas Adam go that way, and Moshe is being Machmir for those Shitas. Fine. Some people say if something's common, then there's no need for a simon, there's no Maris Ayin. Where does that come from? Is there a makar for this concept that if something's common, there is no Maris Ayin? Where do we see this concept? So the Gemara says that in the town of Rabbi Yosef Glili, they ate chicken and milk. And we don't see anywhere that they did a simon. Now, how could you have chicken and milk? Surely chicken looks like meat. So we see from here that is why it must be that since it's the Rabbanan, that's why they weren't worried for Maris Ayin. So you see this. Sorry, I said that wrong. Since it was common, chicken and milk. Since it looked like a deresa, but they held chicken and milk was mutter, but it looked like the deresa of meat and milk. So since chicken and milk was common in the town of Rabbi Yosef Glili, therefore nobody was chayshish that you're going to think it's meat and milk. Everybody understood common. There's no Maris Ayin. And Ravadia says similarly, when it comes to power of creamer for coffee, there's no Maris Ayin because it's common, and therefore there's no Maris Ayin. And the Maisa, the Krasi, the Masham, the Yad Yehuda, they all say the Sprach that it's mutter. When it's common, you don't have to worry about Maris Ayin. Now the Baalei Shulchan doesn't like this heter. He says the Ramah. Oh, and by the way, what's the obvious heter? I skipped the obvious heter. We see that the Ramah says that you're allowed to have the chicken and milk. Oh, maybe it looks like meat and milk. No, we're not worried about that because it says nagu. If it says nagu, it seems like it was common. So it sounds like the Ramah, that's not really such a good kasha, but okay, because you have to be split up two things. I'm taking that away. I wrote that in my notes, but I actually don't like that raya, so I'm putting that raya to the side. Okay. Weiter. Now, I think we could really explain this common thing from a different angle. I think when it comes to common, it's not like it's Maris Ayin with the heter that it's common. This ain't Maris Ayin. There's no Maris Ayin here. It doesn't look like you're doing anything wrong. Why does it look like I'm doing anything wrong? You see somebody after a meat meal having nowadays, all the power of milks are so common. There's 17 different power of milks, and they're so common. It doesn't look like you're doing anything wrong because anybody who the onlooker is going to look, what are you doing? He's going to say, oh, you know what it looks like to me? After the meat meal, it looks like he's having coffee with power of milk. If somebody goes shopping in ShopRite, do you say, Maris Ayin, they serve all this non-kosher meat there? No, it doesn't look like he's going shopping for the non-kosher meat. It looks like he's going to shop in ShopRite for all the kosher food, and therefore it's not Maris Ayin. So, it doesn't start, in my opinion. Fine. Rapad, so where's the cutoff point? So Rapad explains that do you need a parish? Do you need a taich? Do you need an explanation? What do I mean by that? So I'm going to illustrate with the example that's very interesting. So in America, if you see somebody with a hot dog with cheese on it, you're going to be like, huh? What is that? Is that a hot dog and cheese on it? He's a firm guy, so I guess that must be power of cheese, or I guess that must be a soy dog or something, because that's what it must be. So that would be an issue of Maris Ayin. However, in Eretz Yisrael society, soy dogs are super, super common. The boys' yeshivas, they serve soy dogs. It's very common. Israelis, it's a common meal, soy dogs. So if an Israeli sees a hot dog with cheese on it, he's going to be like, oh, it's a soy dog. It's not going to be, what is that? Is that a hot dog with cheese? That's not going to be his reaction. His reaction is going to be like, oh, soy dog. So if you don't need a taich and a parish, it's just, you chop pretty much more or less right away what's going on, then that would not be Maris Ayin. So that seems to be a gedder that we could use. Now, power of cheese on a burger. Power of cheese is not so common. I've never had power of cheese. Do I know it exists? Yes. Have I ever had it? No. So power of cheese on a burger, a cheeseburger. I'm going to be like, is that cheese on a burger? I guess it must be power of cheese. So that's going to be a problem. That's going to be an issue of Maris Ayin. Now, this new milk that they came out with, when they make cheese for it, is it going to, and they want to put that cheese on a burger, is it going to be an issue of Maris Ayin? Yes, it's going to be an issue of Maris Ayin. Maybe after a certain amount of time, maybe it's going to become so popular, it's going to become so normal, and therefore it won't be something that needs the taich and explanation. Maybe things could change, but until then, it's going to be a problem. Once again, another thing, power of ice cream, no Maris Ayin. It's obvious, we all know what it is. The Knesset Gedolah says there's no Maris Ayin by things that are back to back. What do I mean by that? So there's no, let's say I had meat and then I drink a cup of the new milk, let's say. So the Knesset Gedolah is going to say there's no Maris Ayin because it's only two things that you do at the same time. If you do this and then later you do that, it wasn't 6 hours. No, there's no such thing as Maris Ayin on that, as well as you're also going to be on into derabbanans as well. Fine. Now the Taz says, as explained by the Piskei Teshuvah, something interesting. Let's say you don't have the simon. I have no almonds to put out. So Taz says, okay, so you could don't worry, you don't have to worry about the Maris Ayin. If you don't have a simon, don't worry about it. The Rav Kiva Eger says you can only rely on this by a chayla, because this is definitely not the accepted psak. You see, most of the Nesikilim did not rely on this. Now, if something is potential Maris Ayin, a siman will make it allowed. And as we see, there's the fish scales in the blood, the geshmaka heter of fish scales. So you see, fish scales can make it mutter. Similarly, we see that but when it came to the blood, right? That not the blood. Sorry, the milk. Not the blood. The milk. When it came to the blood, the milk, that if you put out the almonds, this acts as a simon and it works. So the Darkei Teshuvah asked an interesting question: could you use almonds as a simon when the milk is really cholavisha? It's a woman's milk in the meat. Could I put out almonds? And the Darkei Teshuvah says yes. The poskim say that leaving the wrapper out, Let's say the bottle of soy milk, the bottle of almond milk, or the wrapper out when it's obvious from the wrapper, not when it says in small letters in the wrapper that it's parv. But the type of wrapper where you can tell from the wrapper it's obvious that we're dealing with a parv item. If you leave that out, that would be enough. What about a sign? So the Dasar says if you write on a sign that says, oh, by the way, the milk is parv, that counts. The Badei Shulchan says, no, it doesn't. You can not everybody reads the sign. But the Badei Shulchan, by the way, is maskim on the wrapper. The wrapper's okay. What's the difference? So there's two differences. First of all, the wrapper, it's clear this item is from there. As opposed to the sign, is somebody just wrote something up. Number two, when it comes to the bottle of soy milk or almond, I don't have to read the bottle. I see the bottle, I chop what it is. A sign, I need to read a sign. Not everybody reads signs. So that would be a machlekes. We'll leave that machlekes unresolved. But once again, you're usually going to have more reasons to be matter anyways. Now, doing a siman for a cheeseburger, that's a big challenge. That's very difficult to do a siman for a cheeseburger. Because what do you do exactly? How do you do a siman for a cheeseburger? So, if you're in this... So, I think the best siman that I was going to think, they should make, like the... I think it's called the wax paper that they wrap the burgers up before they cut them to make them look geschmack and keep the juices in, the sauces in. So, they should put on that wrapper... parv cheese, made with parv cheese. That would be the best thing. But I know that doesn't always happen. And once again, I never actually saw one of these cheeseburgers, but I assume that doesn't always happen. Next best thing is, I don't know, you should put a sign on the table. When you give them a cheeseburger, put a sign on the table. This cheese is parv. That would be the best. But it might be weird. People might not like that. Okay. I would assume the type of restaurants that serve cheeseburgers, the people who are in those restaurants probably know that they serve cheeseburgers. They know it's a kosher restaurant, and they know the cheese is parv. It's probably well known, well documented. Maybe they should put up a sign about it. Maybe that would be helpful. But I think it's meforsim, it's shchich, it's common to the people in the restaurant. So I think eating it in the restaurant, we could figure out a heter. But what about the cheeseburger takeout? How is somebody going to eat that at home? Well, it's at home. I know. Well, whatever we ask because of Maris Ayin in public, we ask her in private as well. Cheeseburger, l'chayr is awesome d'oraisa. I know you don't grill the cheese on the grill, but since the burger cooks the cheese, I think it's probably considered a basar v'chalav d'oraisa. So therefore, how could you have it in private? So once again, if you have the wax paper thing that says it's parv cheese, that's probably best. I think you should probably send with them for their house a little sign that they could put up next to themselves that says it's parv cheese. If not, I don't know what you do to make the takeout not a issue of Maris Ayin, the basar v'chalav. You need to send them with some sort of a siman that says that this is parv. Maybe little things that say parv cheese. They could put it next to them. It's funny if you're eating by yourself that you have to do that, but l'chayra you should. What about imitation bacon, bacos? Imitation shrimp and all this type of stuff. Imitation crab, the stuff that they put in the sushis, all that type of stuff. So this stuff is all commonplace, and therefore there's no Maris Ayin in these things. Rav Moshe says that you can't go to a reform shul, even not to daven there, for whatever, to fix the air conditioning. I don't know to do what. Rav Moshe says you can't go to a reform shul, Maris Ayin. Non-kosher restaurant. What about going into McDonald's? So Rav Moshe says you're not allowed to. However, b'makim tsar, you really need the bathroom, you really need a drink, then you'd be allowed to. We don't matter every Derabanan b'makom tsar. I think maybe we're applying some of the original Yad Yehuda that we're not so ma'achmir here on the newly applied Maris Ayins. So because of that, we're going to say b'makom tsar, you're allowed to go in to the bathroom or get a drink by McDonald's. Now, there might be actually, I heard somebody claim a chiluk. If it's like a rest stop, so people chop rest stop, you have to go to get a drink, you have to go to the bathroom. And I'm talking about where there's no other store there. If there's another store and another bathroom, go to the other store and the other bathroom. But if there's no other store, no other bathroom, people chop you. That's where you're going to the McDonald's. But if you're walking down the street and there's 100 options, 100 places to get a drink, 100 places to go to the bathroom, and you would have to go into McDonald's, that sounds much more like Maris Ayin. So let's go over our term one more time to just get a little more clarity. Oh, one more thing that I forgot to say. That if the action that you're doing is allowed, it's just that the people that don't know the halacha are going to think it's usher. That's not Maris Ayin. Like somebody asked her Moshe, I don't know if it's you should be. Ramesh used to get into a car after licht benching to get driven to yeshiva. So somebody said to Ramesh, I don't know if there are people that think that it's Shabbos already, and then they see you in the car. Surely it's a problem. So Ramesh answered, no, they should just go learn halacha. That's not Maris Ayin. However, outs like Gadol, so to speak, he decided he was going to stop, but not because there's a chiyuv in Maris Ayin. So once again, if what you're doing is mutter, people just don't know the halachas, that is not Maris Ayin. Like we have this for klishamat, moving a klishamat l'isser, l'tzarach heter, or l'tzarach mekoymei. A lot of people don't know about that. That's not Maris Ayin. You're allowed to do that because you're allowed to. Okay. So let's just go through some of these heterim and get a little clarity one more time. So, when it comes to Maris Ayin and something that looks like a derabanan, it's a machlokes whether there is Maris Ayin or isn't Maris Ayin. We're going to be machmir in public. We're going to be mekel in private, but pashtus, even though Ramesh is machmir. So there is room to definitely be machmir. Now, there's no Maris Ayin on something that the allowed way of doing it is very common. So if par of milk is very common, there's no Maris Ayin. And if there's only a problem involving multiple steps, so for example, each individual step that I'm doing is sure, fine. It's just that, if I just ate meat an hour ago and now I'm eating milk, so that looks like a problem, we say there's not a Maris Ayin issue. We're not choshesh from Maris Ayin stalkers. Only Maris Ayin onlookers. Next, we say that a siman works to make the item or the action allowed. Now, just one more question, which is connected to this that people might be thinking: having these imitation cheeseburgers or imitation crab or bacon, is this a Yiddish azach? Is somebody supposed to be doing this? Is something wrong with having these imitation drinks or foods? So, there's a Gemara in Chulin, Tessim Beis. Yalta, the wife of Reb Nachman, says that there is a kosher equivalent to many non-kosher foods. And it goes on to list all these non-kosher foods and describes its kosher equivalent. And upon hearing this, Reb Nachman tells his cooks, go take cow udders and flip them up on the grill. Now, cow udders is meat with milk inside, but it doesn't have the halachic din of milk. So go flip that in the grill, and that's going to be the kosher version of basar b'cholov. And seemingly Reb Nachman was endorsing this practice of his wife, so to speak, from his wife said, of having imitation kosher food which imitates non-kosher food. Based on this, Reb Chaim Kanievsky says there's no problem having imitation of non-kosher food. Apparently, I heard that Reb Matisyahu Solomon was against all this imitation food and all the replica food, and he said it's a bad thing. I read from Zev Leff that it depends. If you want to taste it, cheeseburger, it sounds good schmack. I would love to taste this cheeseburger. That's fine. But if you're doing it to be goyish-like, then that's a problem. I assume most people aren't doing it to be goyish-like, but I'm not sure. But that's the idea. That's the basic sugya of Maris Ayin. Thank you for listening.